destination mark.
Hey guys, how's it going? Marcelo here, and welcome to a new little sub-series, I guess, of discussion videos that have been a couple months in the making now, trying to figure out how I wanted to approach this, the Connections series. Now, what this is a series of videos that all have to do with the immersion of a game, across multiple aspects, across music, across characters, like today's video, environments, and even control schemes. Because of course, all of these things really matter in your game. So, the Connection series is meant to talk about how these things affect us, the players. So, with that being said, episode 1 has to do with characters. How would you want to get your characters noticed by people, and how should we feel about these characters? I'm not going to spoon feed you, my ideals of like what a character should be. I'm just going to pretty much be saying what I like to find in characters, what I gather, and how I go about determining how I perceive characters in games. Basically, it boils down to 3 themes: the design of the character, the alliance of the character, and how well written is the character. These things are what get me attached to characters in games personally. So you guys can tell me immediately after the video in the comments below. Let me know what you guys look for in characters and how do you perceive characters in video games. This is how I perceive them, by these 3 things, and that's what gets me either attached or not attached to them. So where do we begin? I can just list off like a bunch of different characters, and I will be, not a whole lot, but across more gritty games and more cartoonish games, and you already know a couple of them that I'm going to bring up. So let's begin with the first point, which is the design of the characters. So design, of course, completely matters, because that's one of the first things you're going to see on the box art of a game, for the most part. If they're characters that you're going to be that they're going to want you to get attached to, then they'll be right there on the front cover. And the design obviously matters, because they can be of course, they have to match the environment that they're in and the tone and the mood of the game. Because if they're a little too out of place, some people have argued, I've said this before, that the more darker take on Spyro from the reboot from Legend of Spyro is a little weird, because he's a cartoony purple dragon, but it's a Lord of the Rings styled, like really with this connection of dragons and all of these and these dark forces of evil and all of that stuff. And it doesn't sound like that would be Spyro, but in my eyes that does actually kind of work because of how they wrote him in this reboot and how he grew throughout the trilogy. But there's things like that where that depends on how well they're written, and we'll get to that in a moment. But you would just look at Spyro's design in that reboot, and then look at the rest of the game, and it's like, well, it's cartoony, so I mean it matches there, but the darkness of it, that's what turns some people off to that idea. I'm just using this as an example. Let's boil it down to The Last of Us. Let's use this, and this is actually a really good example. Now you can't, you can see it okay, with the glare from the outside light hitting the poster. You know what Joel and Ellie look like. They're superhuman, super realistic characters. And the way the game is written, these characters are portrayed as realistic to actual people as possible. The whole game kind of pretty much begs the question, what if this fungus-like, pretty much plant-exclusive, almost disease, in a way, spread to humans and infected humans? Sorry if you can see me sweating, I'm wiping my forehead a lot, wiping my brow. But the way these characters are written is really, you can connect to them, because there's no supernatural elements, and there's no crazy sci-fi-ish kind of element. It's a little sci-fi, but with the whole fungus-esque thing, and it's like a zombie breakout kind of. But for the most part, the characters themselves are written they're just trying to survive. What would you do in an apocalypse if something like this actually happened? They're just trying to get across the country. And it's not so much for The Last of Us as, it's not so much about the breakout as it is how human will you really act when everyone around you isn't so human and you just have to survive? What kinds of shit are you gonna do and what are you going to go through trying to get to where you got to get to. Now, the designs are very simplistic, and Joel doesn't just feel like some old man who, judging by just the look of him, he's going to be crabby. And there's a reason why he's crabby, and that's where the story kicks in. But him as a character, he's not just goody two-shoes, I need to survive, but I'm not going to really kill anyone. I'm just going to try and negotiate my way out of everything. And I'm just going to, excuse me, partner, I don't know, we need to go. It's not so much as that. He tried that once in the beginning of the game and it didn't work out for him. His daughter died. Spoilers, it's at the beginning of the game. His daughter dies. Now he's stuck with another younger female counterpart, and she's going to remind him so much of his daughter and all of that, and what else? I mean, so there's a lot of shit going up against him. And he's done, in that time skip right after the opening credits, he's done some shady ass shit to survive. That's just kind of human nature. So Naughty Dog understands this, and they got it right with him. And even with Ellie too, she grew up in this kind of scenario. He saw it happen. Saw it happen. So the way they can bounce their experiences off each other, with Ellie just knowing this is the world as it is. This is normal for me. And Joel being like, when I was younger, I saw it happen. Excuse me. I saw when we lived differently before all this happened. So there's a lot of in-game interactions that are really cool, the way they're written. It feels very human. It feels very real. The feeling of this game is very real, and that's why it's so cool to connect to it, because it's real. It's not too real to where your suspension of belief just kind of is like falters. It's like okay, whatever. Like it's real enough to where you can connect with them, but it's enough. Their scenarios that they're thrown into are weird and wacky enough, and not so much of a funny, fun way, but more of like a darker way, to where it's like, if this were to happen, it could happen like this, I guess. It's really, it's like Breaking Bad in a way. There's some scenarios in there and some character deaths and whatnot that are fucking weird and crazy, but all those characters are written in a way of it's super real though. There's still a way you can, from who they are, for who Joel is, a single father who lost his kid and now he just has to survive in this world. Some people can't connect to that, and it just, even if you can't, you can still feel for that character because you understand that scenario. Even if you've never been through it, never experienced it in any way whatsoever, you can still get it. So it is relatable. The design, the main thing though is the design. That was pretty much how well written they are. If we want to keep going with them as an example, the designs are pretty simple because again, I guess I already did go over it. It's more real, so they don't look very equipped with they are equipped with all kinds of shit, but they're never decked out in the way of, say, Sunset Overdrive. Not that those designs are bad, they're not. They're really colorful and creative. It's just that for this darker take on that kind of thing, they just look like people, with their clothes all dusty, and because they're on the road, throughout the whole game. So, their clothes are torn up, dusty, all dirty and everything, but wouldn't yours be too if you went on a journey like this? So, very simplistic and again, very real, but we can connect more because they look more like us. Let's kind of step away from Joel and Ellie and talk about something cartoony. Let's stay on Naughty Dog. Let's talk about Crash or even Jak and Daxter. That's more of a fantasy kind of a world. A way different, way cartoonier world. So we can't exactly say that we can relate to some genetic mutation who escaped his captor and his girlfriend's still there, so he has to go save her. Not so much, we don't attack someone by spinning around, we don't do that. But you're not supposed to believe in that, in terms of you can't exactly relate to it, but you're not supposed to. It's wacky and it's fun. That's where your suspension of belief is supposed to be like, okay, this is just imagination. The creator's imaginations just went wild, and this is what we got, and it's fun. What also can connect us is the fact of their alliances. So like I said before with them one more time, especially Joel, he is on the good side, because, you know, it's not like he's abandoning Ellie or wanting to kill anyone, like, on his side for any reason. He straight up really doesn't want to leave Tess. That's as far as I'll go with that. If you haven't played the game, I'm not going to spoil you. But he has done some shady ass shit, and he admits it, you know, so again, that's more real, because you gotta do what you gotta do when hell breaks loose. Like, who are you really? That's kind of the thing that's going on with him. He's still a good guy, but he's not so much of a good guy. It's kind of a Wreck-It Ralph thing. A reverse Wreck-It Ralph. Instead of bad guys, he's a good guy, but not so much of a good guy. With Crash, he's the hero of the story. The hero saves the damsel from the villain. There you go. Super, super simple, but it's cool because that's all you really need. They didn't need to go all out with this really, especially at the time now that just gets into the game. Like, the game is, if this first ever 3D platform, well, not so much as first ever, but if one of the earliest 3D platformers had this dark, crazy, extensive plot and character development and all that, I don't know how that would have done, quite honestly. Especially if they kept him cartoony like this. Like, if they pulled The Legend of Spyro with Crash back then when he first started, it would have been a little weird. I don't know how many people would have really gravitated towards that, but the fact that they kept it simple and quirky and wacky and cartoony, it works. It does its job, because that's how games were back in the day. You didn't need so much, you know, character development and all that, because it was almost like an arcade game in a way. And it felt really simple and easy to just grasp and get a hang of. So with Crash's Alliance, he's the good guy, and there you go. That's all you really need. Where else was I going to go with him? He doesn't talk. That's the one other thing. He's a silent protagonist for the most part, and besides the occasional exclamation when he wins or something, but Crash is pretty much silent, and that was an intentional choice by Jason Rubin and Andy Gavin. I'm going to paraphrase, because I don't remember exactly how they described their choice for doing this. I get it, I just can't describe it very well. It's because, I've tried to explain it before, but when you put a voice to a character, you tag a personality to them from their voice and their actor, you know, right there. You can go anywhere. They can be super sarcastic, but still, you know, as TV tropes would call it, a jerk ass with a heart of gold, or, you know, like Daxter. let's just go to Jack and Daxter now. If Crash acted like Daxter in the first game, I don't know how many people will gravitate towards that, because he's the only character really there that, you know, you play as and you interact with, and he has like a snarky comment for everything he does or something, you know? I don't know how that would work out. You don't need that. If you know, this was their way before doing first-person stuff, to try and immerse you as you are the character. They would just have them be silent. That way you can focus on what you're doing, and you, technically, are doing this. You're making Crash smash through the crates, jump up the platforms and the ledges, and spin away the enemies. That's you doing it. That's not so much as the Crash, the character who's got the snarky comment for everything. And I'm glad they did it that way. When they did the same thing with Jack, and in the first game, it worked for that exact reason as they did for Crash. It's something they learned from Crash. Then they wanted Jack to talk, because they realized they could do a lot more with him in terms of interacting with everyone else who would be talking once they shift the tone and the atmosphere and all of that stuff, and the setting and all of that. So there's a way to do it, and there's a way to not really do it. Let's get into that. There's only so much I can see through the LCD screen. I'm really sorry if I look like crap right now. I'm sweaty, it's summer, makes sense. I live in California, so the way to not do this right with characters in this fashion with the design is to make them not so relatable. We have so many games, mainly shooters, with a generic soldier guy. Okay, who is he? What does he do? What's his story? Well, we know what he does. What's his story? And is it interesting? Not just is there a story, but can we actually, even if we can't relate to it, is it still interesting? Not everyone can relate to Joel because he's a single father who lost his kid, but we understand it, and it is a really sad, crappy thing to happen, but we get it. We understand it for it being that. That's pretty real and gritty. What's also real and gritty is you can relate. If you were a soldier and you came back, that makes sense. Maybe you can relate to it more than someone like we would, you know? But to lose our suspension of belief and to really just kind of let our imaginations fly on how this could all work, and even if you wrote it realistically, is it interesting? Because I don't know any of the storylines from Call of Duty for these characters because no one ever takes the time to explain it, and I never hear any players be like, oh yeah, but that's story, that campaign mode or whatever, you know. I know it as adventure mode, as story mode, now it's campaign mode, so whatever. But it's like, not even, if the creators themselves don't even put enough effort into the storylines for their characters like this, doesn't matter if it's a shooter or not. Splatoon has even more. Splatoon's a third-person shooter and they have better character development than Call of Duty. It's like, we get it. That's where the imagination and that stuff comes in. Because again, Splatoon's not realistic, so I mean, we don't need to like, I sympathize with this character. I mean, not so much, but we do understand what's going on, who such and such was, and all of that. So it makes sense, you know, and it was written really well. And the designs for those characters are, of course, really cool too, because we even saw now that Nintendo's, you know, revealed how they came about with their character designs. They were going to start off as rabbits. You know, did you guys know that? Splatoon's characters, before they were squid kids, they were rabbits. And when that made no sense, they turned them into squids. So, and they looked like real, like the way they looked when they transform into squids, that was supposed to be their default look, even when upright. Then they turned it into kids because, hey, kids will be playing this game. These are the two avatars, the boy and the girl. Might as well make them kids. So it makes sense, and that's cool. And the way they do it, the way they tell it, it's good. It's really well done. But with the designs being like, say for example, a generic soldier man. Sorry, I'm going really fast today. And it's hot. Oh, why does I have to do this today? Sorry. With realistic soldier man and Alliance, we're assuming good for the most part because, you know, unless they throw fast one at us, which I can't really think of any shooters that have thrown. They're not saying there aren't any out there, I just can't think of them that have thrown us a fast one and we're playing as the bad guy instead of the good guy, or we can choose our alliances. That's multiplayer stuff, which is okay for multiplayer, but to really lose yourself in a game, if it doesn't really matter, then it doesn't really matter. It's like, okay, so we don't know really what we're fighting for besides the simple kill everyone kind of a thing. To earn points, you know. The immersion, I can't immerse myself in that for some reason. That's why I don't gravitate towards shooters. I can't immerse myself in that kind of setting. You can now hear the cooler on. I needed to turn it on. It is hot as shit in here. I can't turn on my, can I turn on my fan? I put my fan on. Okay, so there's probably gonna be a lot of background noise. Again, I apologize, but it is hot. Please bear with me here. In other videos I do on here, I could you know get past it, but you just saw me right now. I was sweating, so we have to deal with that. Hopefully the music will cover up the sounds. If not, sorry. So not only is it generic soldier man, Alliance doesn't really matter, especially if you're playing multiplayer, which is all people do in shooter games. But there's no writing. There's pretty much no writing, and even if there is, there's not enough for us to really. Is it interesting? Maybe not, because it's just, again, you can't appeal if it's a soldier man and not even, it doesn't matter the alliance or the reasoning of them doing what they're doing. Who cares how they're written? Who cares what their backstory is at that point? You've lost people on the other two aspects already. So I mean, with the third one, it kind of won't matter at that point because no one talks about the campaign or the story in the campaign. You're just shooting dudes, really. So there's a not so great way to do it, and there's a great way to do it, like The Last of Us. So that's pretty much the way I personally perceive how characters, I guess you could say, should be done, or at least that's what gets me attached to certain characters. Their designs, their alliance, and how well are they written. That way we can actually get attached to them. What do you guys think? I'm sorry for all these background noises, but it is too damn hot in my room. My beard's probably all full of icky sweat. I really need to shave this. Okay, so what do you guys think? I'm going off topic. Comment below now at this point. Let me know how do you guys perceive how characters should be in your eyes, and how do you get attached to characters, and what do you think are written characters and poorly written characters. So let me know all that in the comments, and I have a couple more. This is the first episode, I guess you'll call it episode, in the connections line of discussion videos. So this was players versus characters, players and characters, characters. So with that being said, I'm Marcelo. I'll see you guys later. Take care. It is hot. Oh boy.